Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the pub here to answer your burning questions. No Chris and Pat this week as they're off. One in Japan, one in Barcelona, I think, interviewing a very famous footballer. So instead, we've got Mikey McCubbin, we've got Doogie Critchley. Obviously, there's only one place to start. It's Tottenham Hotspur. This was asked by Flo Ryan, 04. Is Mourinho the right choice for Spurs? Let's start though on Pochettino.
Yeah, we have to start with Pochettino because we've got to give him enormous credit. I think he's probably their best manager in modern football history, probably second after Bill Nickerson, who obviously led them to those titles in the 60s. And he has transformed Spurs from, the nearly men of English football into consistent challengers. Before he took over, they'd finished in the top four 3 times since 1990. In the preceding years, since he took over, 4 in the last 5, all of the last 4 years. They'd only finished with over 70 points, I think 3 times in the last 29 years before he took over. Again, 4 in the last 5, over 70 points. He took them to a Champions League final, he took them to a League Cup final, 2 FA Cup semi-finals, brought in players, made them into superstars. Harry Kane's now England captain, Dele Alli always around the England squad. Made Danny Rose one of the most consistent left-backs in the league. For a time, Jan Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld probably the best centre-back pairing in the league. And that run to the Champions League final, I mean, Sonny put it perfectly on the podcast yesterday. It's given Spurs fans newfound belief. They beat Man City, Dortmund, Ajax, lost to Liverpool, deservedly so in the final. But in the preceding years, they challenged Juve in the Champions League. They'd beaten Real Madrid at home. And he really did make Spurs take them to the new level, really. I mean, in 16-17, I think he finished with 86 points. Would have been enough to win the title, or at least it was level on points with the title winners of 4 of the last 7 years. Only a fantastic Chelsea side under Conte managed to beat him that year. And he did it all while spending a net spend of 110 million across his 5 years. And that's only second to Chelsea in terms of net spend. Everyone else was over double that. Man City were over 7 times that. United were over 6 times that. So he made them compete and far exceeded Man United in that period, despite spending half the budget. Yes, the current situation was probably time for a change. I think the malaise had set in January, February, at least in the league form. The Champions League run covered up a lot of issues there, but they still haven't won away since January. I think it's 25 points in the last 24 league games, which, make no mistake about it, is relegation, sort of just above relegation form. From all accounts, like the Champions League final defeat took a lot out of him. He was really sullen, supposedly, around the training ground. He really didn't know how to continue after that. He flew straight home to Barcelona after that defeat rather than going back with the squad, apparently. That really affected his relationship with Levy. And they're languishing in 14th. They're already 11 points off the top 4. I think with Pochettino in charge to the end of the year, it looks like that wasn't really going to improve. Because, we're in mid-November now and their results really weren't picking up. They'd lost to Colchester in the League Cup, League 2 side. They'd been beaten 7-2 by Bayern Munich, the first time they conceded 7 goals at home in their something like 150-year history. So I think it probably, initially I was very surprised, but actually thinking about it, I think the change was the right decision. I'm just really, really surprised with who they've appointed in Jose Mourinho. I just don't feel like his recent record makes sense with Spurs whatsoever. Whenever he goes into a club, his first 2-3 years, it's all about big spending. When he went into Real Madrid, they brought in Di Maria, Ozil, Khedira. When he went into Chelsea, it was Schürrle, Matic, Willian, all in his first window. Both those times spending close to 100 million. And then when he went into United, people forget, he brought in Pogba, Mkhitaryan, Ibrahimovic, Bailly, all these players. And yet, his time at United, I mean, you guys will know better than me, ultimately ended on a really sour note. To say the least. I think they were 19 points off league leaders Liverpool when they were fired. And, they won 2 trophies, Europa League, League Cup in his first year, fantastic. But they only finished 3 points above where they did under Van Gaal in that year. And then that 17-18 campaign, which everyone harks back to, is them finishing second. I mean, it was based off a defence that conceded 28 goals, due to De Gea having the best goalkeeping season of all time.
And it wasn't close to the title. 19 points off the title. And that second place finish, like you said, was effectively all down to David De Gea. Yeah. We were rubbish in so many areas.
The second half of that season was some of the most unwatchable Man United games, of the post-Fergie era. And then the 6 months that came after that was, I think, easily the worst period since Fergie left United. His recent record is pretty bad, which does make it quite surprising that everyone's kind of reverting back to this kind of Mourinho's, he's actually not as bad as you remember him. He's had that time out, to be fair, which has definitely kind of maybe softened people's opinions on him. He's had quite a good stint as a pundit as well, where he's been pretty impressive. But it's the same kind of thing. His last 2 jobs in particular have ended in absolute crisis. And I think since Real Madrid, really, he hasn't had a job where he has really properly put his imprint on a club. Like with Real Madrid, obviously he was excellent for those 2-3 years, but with Chelsea and United, like he didn't really rebuild those squads really. That that there was work being done before that, despite his big spending at both clubs. So I don't know. Yeah, and what Tottenham need right now is a massive rebuild, like especially from the defence. And I don't know, at least in terms of United, Mourinho took a defence which was overperforming under Van Gaal, at least was performing more than the sum of its parts, and was arguably the best or second best defence in England at the time. Spent money on it, chucked 70 mil on two centre backs, and the defence actually regressed under him. So that's the worry, I think, at least beyond the next 6 months, where you could definitely see Spurs just getting that new manager bump, and Mourinho's kind of, I don't know, I guess his just energy and kind of motivational kind of aspects kind of pulling Tottenham out of what is at the moment a lower mid-table finish.
Yeah, I also think, like, when I first heard the news, I was really shocked. I think everybody was, and in some regards, I do think it might be fairly successful. I think if it depends what Tottenham deem as success. They are making a deal with the devil in this moment. They've agreed a 4-year contract, however long it is, at £15 million a year, making him the second highest paid manager in world football. So a £60 million contract has been given to Jose Mourinho. What does success look like for £60 million? Because for me, and okay, this Tottenham fans may disagree, I don't think a League Cup trophy warrants a £60 million contract to Jose Mourinho. That would be my immediate thoughts. And outside of a League Cup, and you never know, maybe a FA Cup, I don't think Jose does anymore. Does he beat Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola at the moment and over the course of the next 3 years to the Premier League title? No, he doesn't. Does he have the funds and the resources required to lead Tottenham Hotspur to a Champions League trophy? Probably not. Does he potentially win a League Cup and scruff his way there with some ugly football? Yeah, maybe. And if that's what Tottenham want for the next 3 years, scruffy football with massive outlay and a potentially catastrophic failure at the end to win a League Cup, then fair play, this is the right manager for you. In my opinion, Pochettino has built a club here, new £50 million training facility, one of the best in the world, £1.2 billion stadium, one of the best in the world, structure running throughout the team in the contracts and the monetary spending on transfers. Everything has been down to a T. We've talked about Tottenham as being potentially too tight with their money and giving players too much, not enough to work with. And now suddenly in 24 hours, Daniel Levy has spent £17.5 million getting rid of Pochettino and all his backroom staff, and agreed a £60 million contract with Mourinho, who, by the way, is earning £88,000 more per week than any player at the club.
And paid more than Klopp, Conte, Simeone. And
what he now has to realise, Levy, is that because of that deal with the devil, Harry Kane is going to want a new contract. He's on £150 up to £200,000 a week, depending on bonuses. Dele Alli is going to want a new contract. Both of the centre-backs are leaving in the summer, and if Mourinho wants to keep them, which he might because they're established stars, and that's what Jose likes, he's going to have to give them a massive pay rise. The same can be said of Danny Rose. Hugo Lloris is in a downturn in form, and we don't know how he's going to recover from that dislocated elbow. We'll probably want a big bump. Lo Celso, who is still there on loan, by the way, that transfer hasn't been made permanent, might well go, okay, well, Jose's earning £300,000 a week, I will be earning more than the £80,000 you've originally offered me. If I was all these Tottenham players, I'd be going, you ripped the monetary book up when you signed Jose, we want to rip it up now as well. Because why would you stay? If you're Jan Vertonghen, Christian Eriksen, Toby Alderweireld, all the established stars that Jose is going to want, because that's what he's built every team he possibly has managed on, they're all going to want massive amounts of money. And Daniel Levy is going to have to eat that checkbook. And he wasn't willing to eat that checkbook for Pochettino, who is a better tactician than Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, and do you even back him to get this rebuild right? I mean, he spent over 30 million on Mkhitaryan, Bailly, Alexis Sanchez came in with big wages. Lukaku lasted 2 years, although that's probably more to do with the United's hierarchy. Stupid decision to sell him ultimately. I don't know whether you trust Mourinho anymore to effectively rebuild this Spurs side. And if you're someone like Harry Winks, who's been brought in by Maurizio Pochettino, sort of, developed into now an England regular, potentially might start at the Euros, in that sort of mixture for top English talent in the Premier League, what do you take from Mourinho coming in, who's always favoured more sort of defensive, well, not necessarily defensive, but stronger, physically stronger, more dominant ball winners in central midfield? If you're Ryan Sessegnon that's come in with the promise that Pochettino is going to develop you into a world-class fullback or winger, what do you take from Mourinho coming in? Moussa Sissoko, who's developed so much over the last 12 months. There are so many unanswered questions in this Spurs squad, and they've added the most volatile manager of the last 10 years, at least before, the first 10 years of his managerial career. Jose was, by all accounts, a bit of a genius, bit of a maverick, and he became more surly, more angry, and less easy to bend to a situation. He became more stubborn in a way, and you're getting him to work under the most difficult to work under chairman, by all accounts, in the Premier League, in Daniel Levy, who always gets his way, is one of the toughest negotiators, and would probably be the only person to be able to stand up effectively to Jose Mourinho. So it's going to be an absolutely fascinating 12 months, and there's so much work to be done at Spurs.
So how do you think they play? Because for me, he's going to line up how he always does, 4-2-3-1. And I look at that squad and I think Hugo Lloris he's struggling a little bit in his recent form. Okay, he's got one of the highest save percentages in the league, but has also contributed to the most errors leading to goals of any goalkeeper over the last 18 months, I think. So he's potentially needing to be replaced. You've got to look for a right back, given that unless Mourinho works miracles with Aurier, probably not the right fit. Vertonghen and Alderweireld are both out of contract in the summer, so unless Jose again and Daniel Levy decide they're going to pay out their arse on new contracts, they'll be off. Danny Rose has already said he's running down his contract. Ndombele looks like a fantastic signing, and I'm hoping that Jose Mourinho can get more out of him. Does he bring Eric Dyer back into the fold? I remember when Jose Mourinho was adamant at Manchester United, he wanted Eric Dyer. £50 million he was willing to spend on Eric Dyer. I can turn Eric Dyer into a defensive behemoth. Does he come back in?
But, quite possibly.
And usurp Harry Winks? I think he probably does. Moussa Sissoko probably is going to play fleeting roles in and out of the team. Eriksen at 10. Is he there? That's an established start. Is he still going to be there in the summer though? Maybe not. Son out on the left, probably a more defensive worker like Lamela might come into the team on the right, and Kane up front. There's 5 players in there that are leaving in the summer. The established stars that Jose loves.
I've got a feeling he's going to really like Dele Alli, just because of Dele Alli when he plays in that 10 role or as a second striker offers so much defensive work. I think it could be quite good for Dele Alli.
So does he replace Eriksen in the 10, you think?
I think so. I think Eriksen will leave no matter what at this stage. I think he's gone, to be quite honest.
Do you reckon he could go in January?
If I was Spurs, I'd think about getting rid of him. Definitely. Because you're going to lose him for free in the summer, get a fee for him. He's not playing well. He doesn't even deserve to be in the side right now on the basis of his performances. He's actually just becoming a bit of a nuisance. At least from the outside. I've obviously not been in the Spurs squad. So put your faith in Dele Alli. I think Dele Alli, still 23, 24, is still there's a potential world-class player in there. Yes, he's had a down 12 months, but looked like he coming back into a form the last couple of weeks or so. So put your faith in Dele Alli. But yeah, there's so many questions over so many areas. And Jose, that 1 year at United really colours it, because actually he was 5th for points in his tenure at United, and he spent over £400 million, and he was 5th for points.
He's not going to do that at Tottenham either.
He's not going to be able to do that at Spurs, unless they are completely changing policy, which is why I don't think it makes sense going for Jose Mourinho. Why don't you work with a younger, more progressive coach? And I know they couldn't get Nagelsmann, but surely there's someone out there that makes more sense for Spurs, and who is cheaper than Jose Mourinho.
And he's also coming at such an inopportune time, hasn't he? He's never taken over a club mid-season, Jose. He's always coming in the summer. There's always been 2 to 3 months for him to make those signings. Now he's got to, first of all, work with what he's got. He's then now been told that he's not going to have any money to spend in January. If, say, an Eriksen deal was to happen in January, maybe he would be able to get something, but it wouldn't be substantial enough to probably land the kind of targets that he'd be after. So, yeah, it's I don't know. He's got to have to rely a lot on himself and the players kind of picking up his picking up his tactics quickly to get through even the next 6 months, which, I think there will definitely be that bump. But
there's definitely going to be a bump. There's going to be, for the next 6 months, I think things will be very positive at Tottenham, and people will be like, look, what Jose's done. He's really given them a new lease of life. And then in the summer, when they either have to shit or get off the pot on Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, Hugo Lloris, a new right-back, Christian Eriksen, problems will start to emerge. You'll come to September and Jose will be going, well, I wanted this player, like he did in his last season, I want this player, didn't get these players. I've only been able to get downgrades on these players, the level of a Lindelof and Bailly, and suddenly that's when things start to unravel and it becomes a massive issue.
The problem is as well, is that at United, Mourinho could afford to finish 6th in his first season because United at least then still had the stature and had the wage structure to allow huge signings to be made. So he was able to get Lukaku in despite finishing 6th the season before. But at Tottenham, I just don't think that's the same. I think Tottenham are still, to be fair, in credit to Pochettino, to have got Tottenham to the point where they are a club of the stature who can can attract a manager like Mourinho, at least given his past. But I feel like Tottenham have to finish 4th this year in order to be able to land those top targets. I don't see why.
He might well do it. Let's not write Jose off in terms of finishing 4th this season. He might well pull something out of the bag, and it wouldn't overly surprise me if he ended up this season, like I said at the beginning, with a League Cup and a 4th position finish, and everyone would be going, oh, this is a brilliant piece of genius by Daniel Levy. But you're making a deal with the devil in the long term because you are spending triple your wages on all your players. You are spending more money than you ever have before on a manager. You're going to have to give him the biggest severance package in the club's history. And then afterwards, you look at it and go, oh, wow, what did we just do? Yeah. We've got a squad full of 30-year-old players that have all played for Jose before. In January, would it be a surprise for anyone that he goes and gets Gareth Bale, Nemanja Matic, Zlatan in?
The boys.
All on short-term deals, all on monster wages. It wouldn't be a massive surprise to anyone, I don't think.
I think Zlatan.
And I think if you were one of the Tottenham players coming through and you look, if I was Harry Kane and suddenly Zlatan came in, I'd be going, are we playing up front together? What are we doing here? We're rotating in and out? I'm not too sure about that. If I was Heung-min Son and I saw Gareth Bale arrive he's on at the moment at Real Madrid, reported 500 plus K a week. Even if he takes a third off and comes in at 400k or 350, if I'm Son and I'm putting up numbers of 20 goals and 10 assists every season, and Gareth Bale comes in and does the same numbers and is earning treble my wage, I'm going, what is going on here?
Yeah. I kind of disagree with you in that I just can't see top 4 happening at any stretch. They're already 11 points. He's got 26 games to overturn an 11-point deficit. And I know City are in great form in the league at the moment, but they'll definitely improve as their injuries come back. Leicester and Chelsea, again, there's such a bracket between the top 4 and the rest at the moment. I think they might get 5th or 6th, to be honest, with the weaknesses of United and the weaknesses of Arsenal. I feel like they've got a better squad than United, definitely, at least in certain areas, at least definitely in midfield. But I'm kind of with you, the issues that Mourinho brings after 2-3 years in the way he talks to the press, the way he complains publicly. We saw it with Pochettino in the last 6 months saying that I wanted, fridges and I got a washing machine and this sort of stuff. And then he was like, oh, you need to call me a head coach, not a manager. I can just see Mourinho making the same public announcements after, not necessarily this summer, maybe the summer after that. He has never lasted more than 3 years in a club at any stage of his career. Why have they given him a 4-year deal? Surely he might not have wanted to work for 2, but at least break 2 in a break clause or 3 max. 4 years on that wage.
There has to be break clauses in there.
The good thing is, this is pretty much do or die for Mourinho's Premier League career. So I think he will go about it differently than he did at United because he cannot fail again, which ultimately he left United.
Everybody said the same thing though when he joined United. Yeah, he's going to come back in a different way.
Yeah, I think who would hire him?
I'm
pretty surprised he's got this job.
That's what I'm confused about because for me, Man United was do or die. Just considering how bad the last 6 months were at Chelsea, Man United was not only his dream job but also his last chance.
Though, potentially.
I don't know,
man. Strikes is
what
silly,
saved him at Manchester United is winning a League Cup
winning
Europa League.
What, do you think Daniel Levy saw that and was like, you know what, that's
no, but that saved Jose's reputation, I think. I think that the second place finish that people always level as an amazing football achievement, he lucked his way to because of David De Gea. The Europa League win, we faced some absolute garbage in the run to
and we were
winning that.
lucky to get
one
so
of
far.
the
One of the worst run of oppositions, most fortunate runs I've ever been able to witness. When we were beating likes of Celta Vigo
and because
and scraping through on free kicks in an extra time, I was thinking that it's meant to be. And then the League Cup as well, facing teams like Southampton in the final, and it was like saved by Zlatan Ibrahimovic hat-trick, or he got 2 on the day, I think, actually.
In the last couple of minutes.
And it's just like, okay, we won these things, and this is what's bolstered Jose's Manchester United reputation, when in reality, in the same way the Champions League run papered over cracks for Pochettino last season, they papered over massive cracks for Mourinho. And I think, like I said at the start, if Tottenham fans are happy with winning a League Cup or an FA Cup to the tune of spending £60 million and potentially ruining your entire wage structure and ethos as a club, fair play. I'll hold my hands up, take your 4th place in your FA Cup and walk away with it. But for me, that just seems like a massive risk.
And I think it's a risk they don't have to take as well. I think when Man United say hired Mourinho, I know we're kind of going back to Man United again, but when United hired Mourinho, it was deemed a risk worth taking because the football had been so dire at Old Trafford previously. They finished 5th. Tottenham should be in a position of strength. They should be able to attract any of Europe's top young, exciting managers, whether it be someone like Ten Hag or Nagelsmann, even someone like Allegri or we were discussing before, like Ancelotti. Obviously, he's not one of the kind of younger ones, but. Tottenham could have had a pick of anyone if they, even if they decided to part ways with Pochettino in the summer or given him until next summer.
Yeah.
They in the long term that would have just been.
And I feel like more managers will be available later in the window, later in the season. You might have a Tuchel available, or you might have, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility that PSG let him go, would it? And Jose was suddenly sniffing around that job. Whereas that role fits Jose way more, where he's going to have a big budget and he's going to have stars that are immediately ready-made to his disposal. He can kick out some dead wood and stuff. At Tottenham, he comes in with star players, but I just think there's so many contractual issues going on behind the scenes that it's going to be a struggle after the initial next 8 months, which I think will be a booming period for Tottenham and they will see a lot of success. For Pochettino, though, what do you think the future holds for him? Because he can go where he wants now.
Yeah, he's
12 mil in the pocket.
He's left a club, and I've never seen such a positive feeling when a manager leaves a club. Like the eulogies he's getting, and rightly so, for how he's transformed Spurs. I'd bide your time if I was Pochettino, and then if Bayern came at you in January, after Hansi Flick's caretaker spell, I think they're going to see how that goes potentially, and then maybe in January, go for him. But I think the Real Madrid job might come up at some stage this season. I don't think United job will come up anymore because I'm pretty sure you guys are backing Solskjaer at least you're really backing him now. I think you're right behind him. But Pochettino will be linked with any job that comes up in Europe, and he'll probably be at the top of the list alongside the likes of Allegri and if Ancelotti if he loses his job. So I think Pochettino is in a great position. The final point I'd like to make on Mourinho is it's quite damning that when Lyon sacked Silvinho, he was linked with the job there. They went for Rudy Garcia. It's quite damning that when Bayern sacked Kovac, there was talk of him going there. Not actually anything happened, materialised. He's now viewed as a second-rate manager by the European big dogs. And Pochettino, in contrast, I feel like his managerial record over the last 4 or 5 years, what he's done with Spurs, he'll be in the mix for every top job for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think the most damning statement, like you said there, is if the job was available at Tottenham Hotspur, Pochettino would be the best candidate. And they've sacked him. And maybe it was the right decision to part ways, maybe not, but Pochettino is going to walk into any job he wants in Europe and be a success there. If Bayern Munich choose to move for him in January and he wins the Bundesliga this season and takes them to a Champions League semi-final, everybody, come July, will be going, God, did Tottenham move too early? Now that Pochettino's won a cup, a league, and has taken to a Champions League final. Everybody will be going, maybe Tottenham moved too early. And that'll be the narrative. And Jose will have finished 4th and spent £300 million to win a League Cup.
Yeah. He might need a break though, Pochettino, to be fair. From all accounts that we've read in The Athletic, all articles, that there has been a massive shift in his mood and his energy levels since that Champions League final defeat. Take 2 or 3 months out, recharge the batteries and go again, because he unlike Mourinho, I think has got 10 years, 10, 15 years at the top, and I think this is potentially Mourinho's last chance.
Right, what do you think about the Mourinho-Pochettino moves and the whole Tottenham Hotspur situation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Moving on to quickfire questions then. The first one was sent in by Sean Ivory _1, who says, who'd be a better fit for Jadon Sancho, Liverpool or Chelsea? Now, I presume he's brought this up because obviously he's had a few problems behind the scenes at the moment. Jadon Sancho getting hauled off in the 36th minute against Bayern Munich and obviously getting fined and dropped for reporting back late from England training. Where would you see him, Liverpool or Chelsea?
I think everyone's talked recently that he grew up a Chelsea fan and that might sway him towards Chelsea. But if I was Sancho and I got the option, I'd obviously go to Liverpool. I think they're in a much better position to consistently challenge over the next 3-4 years. And I think if you're leaving Dortmund for a Premier League team, you want to be in the title mix instantly. Whereas I'm not sure, maybe him going to Chelsea does push them closer to it, but Liverpool are a much more complete entity at the moment. And we would just talk about it off camera, but I think we're all maybe thinking that maybe one of Salah and Mane will leave in the next 2 years. I wouldn't be surprised because you know, in order to progress as a club, you need to sell at the right time and you need to buy at the right time. And if someone came in for a 28-year-old in the summer or 29 the following year, Salah I think is a year younger, so similar sort of story. They come in with 150 million plus, then I'd sell to Real Madrid definitely, and bring in a Sancho for hopefully around 120. I think that's just great business. Sancho obviously got so many years on them both, already performing at a superbly high level as well. My only slight worry is if it was replacing Salah, just because I think Salah's their real sort of cutting edge in that front line. Definitely takes the most shots, the most selfish, the most sort of instinctive, the most sort of determined on goal, I would say. So I don't know whether Sancho necessarily replaces Salah that easily, but to conclude, Liverpool definitely for me.
I mean, I don't know. I think if I was Sancho, you kind of want you're going to want first team football straight away, right? He's been such a key part of that Dortmund attack, being their chief creator. And I don't know. I just think Chelsea obviously do need, like, the Chelsea are more in need of someone on the right side.
Particularly if Willian's out of contract.
Yeah, and I mean Willian's going to be aging out either way, isn't he? I mean, I know he's been very good this season, but there's only so long that can go on. So yeah, I definitely, I think I would probably opt for Chelsea if I was Sancho. Having said that, I don't know, like Liverpool probably, like you're saying, like Liverpool do need some sort of reinforcement up front, even without any of their front three going. But yeah, so from Liverpool's perspective, I would go in hard for him. But I think, yeah, if I was Sancho, I'd go to Chelsea. I don't know what you reckon.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that he has to go to the Premier League. I think there are potentially better options elsewhere for Jadon Sancho. I think both Liverpool, the only way to join Liverpool, in my opinion, is if one of the front three goes. I just don't think he'll come in as a rotation option on £120 million. Chelsea, yeah, he could come in and he would be a starter, wouldn't he? But what does that mean for Hudson-Odoi, who's just been given a £100,000 contract? Christian Pulisic, who's been on fire at the moment and has clearly been trusted more and more. And Mason Mount, I'm not too sure. It would obviously mean that one of those drops to the bench. Doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing, does it? Jadon Sancho, if you're going to go somewhere and Chelsea's an option, it's not too bad. But I just think Bayern Munich would not be the worst shout. Still looking for reinforcements out wide, aren't they? And I know that Gnabry's having a fantastic season, but they are still trying to get Leroy Sané over the line, who's had a serious ACL injury. Would it just be easier to pay the extra 30 and get Jadon Sancho at Dortmund? Maybe. Potentially. The beauty of coming to the Premier League is that you are going to be a worldwide superstar immediately. You are going to be on the front cover of everything. And if Jadon Sancho wants to be a superstar, which a lot of people have said, then the Premier League's the place for him. And if he has to come, unless Liverpool are going to sell, I would also go to Chelsea.
And are you guys guessing, because there's obviously so much paper talk about him going to United, you guys just don't see that happening?
I just don't. Why would you join United if you were Jadon Sancho? It's just too much of a drop for me, unless something major happens and United suddenly get back into the top four and everything's galvanised and Pogba's staying. It'd be too much of a drop to go from Dortmund to Man United.
The main reason people seem to say this is because he's good mates with Rashford. Just see your mate on international duty.
And United are going to pay him a load more money than anybody else is going to pay him.
Yeah, true actually.
And probably would pay a bit higher transfer fee to Dortmund than most other clubs, right?
And Chelsea are, let's not forget, still banned in January, so he can't make a move in January.
Although the
Liverpool-
hearing result, I think, or the hearing is today, so we film this on Thursday.
We're shooting this on Thursday, so that might well have changed. But either way, at the moment, at the time of recording, they can't sign him in January. Let's get another question then. This one comes from Tamish Bahal. After Pochettino, who will be the next manager to get the sack? Some very negative ones from Tamish.
Very negative.
I think you got to look at Marco Silva.
Yeah.
Potentially still hanging around. Pellegrini, if he gets a whipping by Jose this weekend,
Probably
could
will
well
happen,
be in
won't
trouble.
it? Yeah.
I think most Arsenal fans want us to probably say Emery, but I don't think that
They're
will
begging it.
Yeah, I don't think that will necessarily happen, to be honest. As long as they're in the top 4 conversation, I feel like they've committed so much to Emery. I think so much has to go wrong for Arsenal to suddenly change their mind, and I don't think there's that many options for Arsenal on the table that would, well, a lot would improve them. I just don't necessarily see that happening. Probably Valverde as well, but then they're still top of La Liga, going through in the Champions League, but that just feels inevitable at some stage.
They also haven't sacked a manager Barcelona mid-season for 17 years.
Yeah, there we have it. Wow.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl was at Southampton as well.
Yeah.
If Southampton start looking like more relegation favourites, come like I think they'll stick by him for a little bit because mainly just because of his track record. But I think January, February, if they're still in the bottom 3, I could see that happening as well.
Yeah. I talked about Ruby for Real Betis as well. Dire this season, defensively shocking. Might go
all over the place. Jegan0903 says, "Who's been your favourite team to watch this season?"
I think surprisingly, this is the most I've liked watching Chelsea ever by distance. I think they are just so fun at the moment. I feel like I've never really thought that, and so many of their players have sort of reinvented themselves in my mind, and I think the general public's mind, like Jorginho, I'm really enjoying watching play. I've enjoyed the introduction of Reece James in recent weeks. I think Tammy Abraham now looks like a sort of Premier League leading striker. I think Chelsea would probably be my favourite to watch, at least surprising factor-wise. And I mean, Liverpool in full flow at Anfield on a Champions League night, there's nothing quite like it as well. But I'm trying to think of other teams that have sort of...
Leicester are really good fun to watch still, aren't they? Leicester are very fun to watch, especially on the counter-attack. I mean, people will be going, what about Sheffield United and stuff? Sheffield United aren't fun to watch.
No.
They get the job done. They're not fun to watch. I would rather watch a Norwich game than Sheffield United because you know there's going to be 4 goals in it because they can't defend and they seem to somehow scruff 2 goals in attack.
I don't know. I think it's quite satisfying to watch Sheffield United play from a tactical
Don't
perspective.
Say that, because Man United are playing today at 4:30 and you can guarantee they're now going to turn us over.
It's actually it is actually one of the tougher games I think for United, definitely.
Is it Sheffield United away as well? You're away.
Yeah,
away.
It is away. Yeah. So I mean, Chris Wilder is great.
Still in
great
5th
tactician.
as well. But what makes me laugh is the drop to 4th to 5th. I think I can't remember, but I think the gap in goals scored between 4th and 5th might be 18 goals.
Between City
Between
and
Man
Sheffield.
City are in 4th and Sheffield United are in 5th.
That's jokes.
But it's just they're not overly fun to watch. But yeah, I'd agree. Chelsea and Leicester, I think.
It's quite niche, but I always kind of enjoy watching Bournemouth as well. I think because it's like watching basketball at times. And I do kind of like a lot of their attackers as well. I really rate Callum Wilson. I think Josh King's really matured into a pretty good Premier League player now. Always enjoy watching Bournemouth as a more niche show.
I think PSG as well in the Champions League have been great to watch this season. I mean, I know they have always been a fairly kind of flair side, but just Di Maria's just been on absolute fire, hasn't he? And seeing Icardi kind of integrate into that team so nicely and kind of complementing Mbappe and everything, that's been really good to watch over the last couple of months.
There we have it. Let's finish up with a personal question then. This one is from TXY Flusky, who says, "What did everybody do for their university dissertation?"
Ooh,
Because you were a historian.
I was a historian.
Well, you are a historian.
Go on, what did you do with it?
Football historian now.
You are, Star Wars legend.
But what did I do? I did a dissertation on the Spanish colonization of Mexico and of kind of religious kind of figures who went over there and tried to generally successfully indoctrinated indigenous people into Catholicism,
really?
and by teaching them the Bible as if it was their own religion almost, linking it together. So
you enjoy it?
I can't really remember much of it past that.
All a
I can't
drunken
really
haze,
remember. I
wasn't
can't
it?
really remember the details, and it was all you know, it was mainly written at 5 a.m. in the morning because that was when I decided
With
was
a few
the most
pro
sensible
pluses,
time. Yeah, that was when I was like on what's called like Tesco Value instant coffee. That was what got me through
That's
it.
what's keeping
Disgusting.
you going.
Yeah, that was mine. What about you two?
I did mine on the Iranian hostage crisis, which was when in like 1981.
What, the British Embassy?
At the American Embassy.
Oh, the American Embassy.
And the Iranians, it was during the Iranian Revolution, kept I think it was 70 journalists and diplomats hostage, and it was about how American-Iranian relations changed from that. I did international relations at uni, so it sort of made sense. I didn't actually particularly enjoy writing it, to be honest. I didn't do very well in it. It nearly got maybe the dreaded 2-2.
Desmond.
Yeah, and exactly. I just about scraped a 2-1, but it was nearly on that hostage crisis.
It's boring though doing a dissertation. Even mine.
I couldn't motivate myself.
I enjoyed writing my dissertation. I did mine on football's effect on like geopolitical structure in Holland.
I thought you did Ajax.
Yeah. So it was like how football and politics and culture like revolutionised Holland in the 1960s, like the amalgamation of the three, and it's just like 10,000 words. After a while, like I've talked about how Jurgen Cruyff is like Holland's version of the Beatles for about 4,000 of them. It's just like so diabolical. It's just so tiresome. But either way, that was our dissertations, and that was Sunday of Vibes. If you want to get your question answered next week, make sure you put it in the comments now or tweet it to us midweek. We usually put the tweet out on Twitter. You can follow us on the below handles. Doogie, anything to shout out this week?
Yes, go over to EFD and watch Friday's Continental Club. I believe we are talking in greater detail about Pochettino and where he can go next, maybe on the continent. And go and check out yesterday's Stat Wars as well between me and Dave Jackson. It's a bit of a meltdown from me, but yeah, I won't reveal any more than that. But I'm still quite embarrassed. Make-ups?
Not really sure.
Well, the Journeyman. Shout out
Journeyman. I know I've been shouting out a lot in the last 3 weeks, but yeah, go check out the Notts County Journeyman if you haven't already. And yeah, Stat Wars. What else? Yeah, that's about it.
10s, 11s. Check it all out. All our usual content.
Yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. Catch you later.